The Albany-Tula Alliance is very, very happy to welcome all of you, especially our students, their parents, their teachers, our board members, our friends, the judges who helped read the wonderful essays. We've been promoting relations with our sister city of Tula, Russia, which is 2.5 hours south of Moscow, for just about 25 years. And what we try to do is to raise the level of awareness of Tula, of Russian culture, Russian literature, current Russia, historic Russia here, as well as raising the level of awareness in Tula of what the capital region of New York State is all about. And over these past 25 years, many people have traveled from Tula here. Others have had the privilege and pleasure of traveling from here to Tula. Hospitality is wonderful. So we've been basically bridging the Atlantic and most of Europe to develop friendships, professional relationships with our friends from Tula. And that's why the topic of this essay was so very, very important during the difficult political times. The relationships between people are even more important than they are when everything is copacetic and harmonious. So without further ado for me, I'd like to introduce Dawn Stewart Weinrob, who is the co-chair of the Albany-Tula Alliance's Education and Culture Committee, who will continue with the program. Thank you.
I would like to add to Jerry's welcome and say I'm so happy to see families, siblings as well, as are putting names to the faces to the names. I know of the essay writers, their teachers, and members of our board. We're really very proud of the people who wrote those essays. And I have to tell you that the judges found it extremely difficult to make decisions and find and identify top winners because they all had something very significant to say. And I think we got new information and new insights from reading them. In fact, I would like to share just a few highlights with you. While acknowledging areas of Russian and American blunders in the international scene and mistrust of each other, our writers cited evidence that both sides realize the need for cooperation in many areas. Scientific collaboration in outer space, declared forever free of military and political exploitation, is only one area they discussed. I was surprised to learn that while economic relations between the US and Russia may be somewhat strained these days, private trade between the two countries has been on a steady increase, both in exports and imports, as have investments in each other's respective countries. Breakthroughs have taken place in health and medical research and investment as well. Some examples of cooperation come in the fields of energy and the environment, such as the sharing of best practices and technical information between the cities of San Diego and Belgorod, with future partnerships in the works for Russian cities of Kaliningrad, Yaroslavl, and Tula, with as yet unnamed American cities. And I hope this is still going to be taking place because it's a wonderful area. One of the writers detailed many significant and intensive environmental research projects conducted cooperatively between the US and Russia in the Pacific Ocean, the Antarctica, and the Arctic. The projects range from studying and managing migration and populations of animals, the fishing industry, climate, clean air, ocean temperature, and energy production. Another writer reminded us of some ways Russia has offered concrete support to NATO in the fight against the Taliban, with weapons and shared intelligence to bring to justice some of the world's most sought-after terrorists. Many of the writers, of course, called for activities and programs to promote in-depth cross-cultural understanding and respect. They encouraged the study of languages, school exchanges, and tourism as ways to build bridges. Words from a John Lennon song, "Imagine There's No Countries, It Isn't Hard to Do," led one writer to dream of the two great powers recognizing what they have in common, combining forces to build world peace. The writer suggests that visiting other countries, cutting through barriers, making new friends might finally remind us that the greatest discovery we return home with is a surprising one. And now I will quote. If you're a tourist that goes to a botanical garden and sees only one species of trees and one species of animals, it would be boring. Sounds strange, doesn't it? It's more interesting when there's diversity. People with different colors, different traditions, and different lifestyles. Maybe that's what's good for us. And I will end the quote and end my comments so that we can move on. And I would like to announce the 3 top winners who will give you a little synopsis of what they wrote, and then we will have certificates for all of the very, very deserving. Right. In first place, Erin Lippett.
Hi. First, I just want to say thank you to the Albany-Tula Alliance. My essay was about the development of Russian-American collaboration in space exploration. So the question for the essay mentioned how, relations between the 2 countries are very difficult right now. And while thinking about what I was going to write, I really wanted to write about something that I draw inspiration from and that I'm passionate about. And for me, that's space. And I've been following on Twitter, actually, how the International Space Station has many missions that include both Russian and American astronauts. And these astronauts, they train together, they share technology, they travel between the 2 countries, they learn each other's languages. And I think that was really important. So when space exploration first started off, these 2 countries were pitted against each other in the Cold War and in the space race, which was America and Russia competing to land a man on the moon first. America won. I think most of us know that. And the space race is over. But in an attempt to kind of ease the tensions that the Cold War had created, the UN started to impose new treaties and regulations on space. And this really opened up the way for America and Russia to begin to work together. So the first time America and Russia collaborated in space was actually before the Cold War was over. And I think that's a really big point I was trying to make in my essay. I was really trying to show that they worked together in a time when relationships were the worst they had ever been. And that's even true today. When our relationships are bad, we are able to still collaborate in space, because space is, where the borders that we impose here on Earth don't matter. And they don't exist in space, really. And I think that was what was so important to me, was showing that in space, it doesn't matter what differences we may have on Earth, but that we can work together towards a larger goal, and a goal that goes beyond just political differences.
I thank you, Erin. And now I'd like to ask Robert Willard to come and give us a sample of what he wrote.
Hi, so I'd also just like to thank the Tula Albany Alliance for giving this wonderful opportunity to all of us to immerse ourselves in a different culture and a different political mentality, and to ultimately understand it better. So my essay was about Russian jazz, which is something that many people don't know about, but is surprisingly a very interesting example of Russian interest in cooperating today and 100 years ago, when jazz was just in its foundational stages, to cooperate with America culturally. And basically, what I tried to achieve within my essay was to show that disregarding cultural tension, political tensions during the Cold War, especially during the Stalinist era, you saw people, a historian can see that jazz was resilient within Russia, and that Russians, no matter the political repression that they were experiencing against, experimentation with Western art, for them, jazz still persevered, and today, jazz has become has undeniably become a part, an ingrained part of the Russian culture, especially in St. Petersburg, where I focused my studies. And what's even more interesting is that not only have Russians taken in jazz and adopted it, but they have also modified it and contributed to the world and contributed to America in America's understanding of what jazz is. As we see, today there are many experimental groups. Even in the 60s in the Soviet Union, there were many experimental groups of jazz, that worked in some rock, some pop into it. And so you can see through this that, in terms of today's tensions, that you can use such interest in cultural interaction to ultimately overcome present political tensions and build another dimension of cooperation and exchange between cultures that can often not be achieved on the economic and the political and the social field. So that's what I hope I achieved in my essay.
Thank you, Robert. And now we'd like to hear from Ian Baldiston.
Like Robert, I also did my essay on musical group. Mine was about a rock band, actually the Red Elvises, who are Russian American. I wrote a bit of a shortened version of my essay, so I might read that out. When you hear news about Russia in the United States, it's usually not good news. And certainly the word friends doesn't come to your mind when you think of the two superpower countries' relationship. However, one band is changing the way people view Russia and America. They call themselves the Red Elvises, a humorous combination of Russian and American culture. Not only do they show this in their name, but they also combine cultures in their music. The Red Elvises are helping to solve common problems found between the Russian and American people and have set the path for breaking cultural barriers so the two nationalities can continue to collaborate in the future. The Red Elvises have a very interesting story as a musical group. It's no coincidence that both Russians and Americans find joy in the band's music. Igor Yusov, the founding member of the band, was born in Germany and grew up in the USSR. In 1995, after he moved to Los Angeles, Igor met Oleg Bernov, another Russian musician living in America. They met while they were at a Russian-American peace walk in Los Angeles. Igor told him about a crazy dream that he had, where Elvis came to him and told him to start playing rock and roll. Together, they decided to form the band. You may ask yourself, what does one person who had some crazy dream about Elvis coming to him have to do with solving common problems of the American and Russian people? Well, back in the 20th century, the Cold War led to a rise in nationalism, resulting in an estrangement between Russia and American people. And this is carried over to today's world. This is where Igor and the Red Elvises come into play. American and Russians may feel hard to connect to each other because of their government's aggressive feelings towards each other. Their music helps combine American and Russian cultures by allowing people to express themselves in any way they please. This idea of the individual expressing themselves is common throughout all the cultures. People in all parts of the world want to let their inner self out and show others who they truly are. Their songs find these similarities in the cultures and show Americans and Russians that they are not as far apart as they think. For example, in their song Surfing in Siberia, they combine the American surf-style rock with the Russian folk music. One measure of song has you imagining surfers in California, and the next reminds you of a street busker in Moscow with Eastern European-sounding tones. If someone listened to this song, it would show them that just by changing a couple of notes in the rhythm in a song, it connects you to a new culture while still reminding you of your own. The Red Elvises do a fantastic job at solving these cultural issues between Russia and America, but it's time for the rest of us to take action. Instead of focusing on the political issues between the two countries, we all need to look at the people of each country, not Putin and Obama's relationship. Many people see the political conflict and simply think that Russia and America are not on good terms. However, this isn't true. Us as a people need to share so much in common, and the Red Elvises really do a great way of displaying this. However, they're not the only ones. Organizations like the Albany Tula Alliance put the power of how we view relationships between different cultures in the people's hands. We need to change how the media portrays Russia and America's relationship. To do this, we have to connect with each other. Listening to the same genre of music, like the Red Elvises, helps. We must share our cultures and be proud of them, but not brash about it. We must be accepting of the other culture and not simply skim the surface of it, but we must dive deep and learn from it. This will allow us to better our own culture. It is up to us, the American and Russian people, to better our relationships, and we must follow the Red Elvis's lead so we can come together as society to overcome these cultural issues.